Jen is a third-year Northeastern University student studying bioengineering. She is working as an undergraduate researcher at Massachusetts General Hospital's Martino Center for Biomedical Imaging. She volunteers at her university's research lab, working on low-cost technology for biomedical imaging. Welcome, Jen.
Thank you. It's nice to meet everyone. My name is Jen. So I graduated from high school in 2018. I went to high school called Lick. It's in San Francisco. Yeah, so I'm a third year bioengineering student, and I'm sort of doing like medical devices, and I'll explain what that means. Bioengineering is pretty broad. There are four kind of main types. You could do like cell and tissue, which is more like if you look like really, really zoomed into the body and you look at the cells and sort of like move them around, fix them, help people. Um, Signal image processing is when you sort of like have this machine and it kind of gives like data and you can like sort of analyze that. Um, Biomechanics is, I guess, like more of sort of like the body. So if you're walking or running, we're looking at how much force or power uh, on the body it happens. And the last one is sort of like devices, which I'm interested in, and that's sort of you could do like robots that help with surgery or sort of devices that help people in need. So like an insulin pump that helps provide like um, insulin for those who have diabetes. But just know that like bioengineering in itself is also really, really broad. You could do a lot of different things. Um, but the main reason I chose bioengineering is because I've always liked to sort of work with my hands and do sort of like hands-on things. I like to kind of blend that with biology in a way and sort of help people in a way that um, I could build and help people in need. So that's kind of how I chose bioengineering. Yeah, so I guess what I'm doing right now is more focused on like signal image processing. So I'm just like looking at these like data. So it might seem a little bit complicated, but it's like, think about, okay, if you're sitting in this machine and they're looking at your brain, it's called like a fMRI, but we're just gonna look at the brain for now. Um, and it looks at how your brain sort of reacts to something. So when you're sitting in this machine, you're oftentimes like, you have to like press this little button every time some like an image of a cat changes to like another thing. Um, so you have to press this button and it sort of looks at how your brain sort of responds or like reacts to that pressing of the button. And that sort of produces this up and down response right here. It's like a up and a down. So this sort of like brain's response can change like based on like if you're older or younger or if you drank like soda or coffee before. So that kind of is what I'm looking at. Um, but so when you're sitting in this machine, you can kind of sit there for like a really long time, like over an hour. You might get a little bit like tired or sleepy. So that's kind of what we're looking at. We're looking at sort of like reaction time. So like how fast you click this button. So here is this image of like when you're supposed to click. So when the image in the machine changes. And then these blue little lines are like when the person does click it. So we're just using MATLAB, which is sort of like it's like a programming tool that a lot of engineers and scientists use to analyze data. And we just kind of like, do some math to find out what the reaction time is. So how fast someone clicks the button. So if you click really quickly, you're more awake, or if you click slower towards like the end of the scan, then you're more sleepy. And we can sort of sort out the people, so sleepy people or like awake people, and then see how that changes sort of this signal, your brain signal. And that's kind of like Yeah, so we use MATLAB to do that. And I guess coding wise, this sort of field of bioengineering includes a lot of coding, and we have to sort of come up with the most efficient way to look through all the data since there's a lot of it. And I guess like not every time is going to work out. So you have to try different options, different routes, and just find the one that works the best. But yeah, that's kind of what this project is. And then the second one is sort of looking at the same up and down, but if you think about, just don't look at the rest of this, but look at this image. If you look and you think of the brain as like a little circle, we want to see how that brain signal changes, like this up and down motion. We want to see how it changes once you get to the center of the brain. And we're comparing that for people with like the healthy brains, and then people maybe who have had injury to their brain, and we want to see how that changes throughout. Yeah, so that's kind of like the two projects that I am kind of working on in bioengineering. And then I guess what I want to say is like when you're young, and I guess like what I kind of wish I knew when I was younger is to sort of keep an open mind and kind of like be curious and don't be afraid to try new things, because you never know like what kind of things you may end up really liking and enjoying. Sounds kind of weird, but like try to be like a sponge, and sort of like absorb all this knowledge and information, sort of like be curious, and learn as much about different things as you can, because then you become more of like a well-rounded person, and everything's connected, so it kind of like helps you out in the end. And then I'd say, I mean, life is always going to throw you challenges, and in coding, like you got to persevere, you have to sort of push through and find different ways to do and solve a problem. And I think also sometimes it's okay like to take a step back, sort of like take a pause, because coming in with like fresh eyes is also helpful. And even realizing that failure is okay because you learn from failure, and it's not the end of the world. And the last thing I think, especially for girls in STEM, I think believing in yourself, because that is, I think, one of the most important things, because having confidence in yourself, um, knowing that you can do it is really important. Yeah, I think those are like the main four things that I'd have to say.
A question before we do a question from the girls. And
Yeah,
the
sure.
girls, you'll have an opportunity to ask questions too, of course. So Jen, could you just say, what is your favorite project at work, school, or free time?
Yeah. So I guess in high school, so my school had like this sort of like, it's kind of like Girls Who Code, but I mean, it's for like everyone, I guess. Um, and then it was more like an electronics class, so like I got to like sort of like build things. And I guess when I was younger, I didn't really like know how to ride a bike properly, and I was afraid like when you like like you need to make a turn on the street and you have to like raise your arm. So I kind of like created something that like if you like flex like a muscle, it like kind of signals this light, so it goes like to the right or to the left. It's kind of like it kind of introduced me to what different options there are in STEM, or just in like engineering, I guess. Um, and that's how I kind of knew that I liked more hands-on work, and like building and creating something from nothing that will eventually like help people in need. And I think that's kind of, yeah, I think that's my favorite project so far. Yeah.
That's cool. Could I just ask one more question and then maybe anybody else so that we can go through the questions that uh, we had prepared. the next one is, what classes in school got you interested in tech and how did you pick your major?
Yeah. I guess in, yeah, maybe in high school again. Um, I did have like sort of like more like hands-on classes at Lick, and we had like wood shop or like metal shop, so you could build like tables or like lamps. Like freshman year, we built like everyone had to build a lamp, and everyone thought it was really cool. But it got me interested in sort of like building and like hands-on. Um, and then I guess I've always sort of had an interest in like biology, and like I thought bioengineering was sort of like a blend of the two, of like being able to use um, my passion for like creating things to help people like around the world. So I kind of went that route. Yeah.
I like that. Thanks, Jen.
Yeah.
So we wanted to move on to the next panelist unless anybody has to take a break or has a question.
Yeah, for sure. I think I guess like a lot of my friends right now, there are sort of like a broad range. Like some people go into like the doctor route, or some people are bioengineers, but they're doing like different things in bioengineering. So I guess my friends, some of them are doing like more like the biology side. So they're looking like way, way deep down into the body, or some of them are looking at how people walk. And I think there are going to be a lot of people that you meet that do share the same interests, and that's kind of how you can also form these bonds with people. But there are also people who won't share the same experience, but will have similar like experiences.